And I'm going to share my screen, but just say how much a pleasure it is for me to be able to participate in this. In a sense, I see it as a little bit of give back, because quite recently I was developing for one of our countries um, uh, a career pathway, if you will, for one of our small countries, St. Kitts, which has a population of just about 53,000. And I must tell you that I drew heavily on your career pathway. As a matter of fact, even had a little conversation with Sis over how you manage that. So I'm quite happy to share with you this morning and what we do in Jamaica to help to develop the teaching competencies in our pre-service teachers, because primarily our teachers are trained before going into. Okay, so going to just spend a little time quickly giving you a little bit of contextual situation. Let me see if I can go into the slide share here. I hope you are seeing and hearing me all right there. Okay, so we are small island states, really. And Jamaica is the largest of the English-speaking Caribbean countries. We have a population of about 3 million. The next largest would be Trinidad and Tobago, which has a population of about 1.4. So you see, we're talking about small numbers. I can't come so far, if you'll excuse me, without telling you a little bit about what Jamaica is known for. Yes, and we are known for reggae, Bob Marley. We are known for outstanding athletes. Usain Bolt. In the Summer Olympics, you saw that we came 1-2 female 100 meter dash. And we're also 4th ranked for Sunshine, for netball with our Sunshine Girls. So that's us. You know, small, but we like to think that we have made our mark in one way or another within the country. Our teaching force, as you can see, with a population of just some 3 million people, is just about 25,000 teachers, with 80% of them being largely female. We have overall 86% of our teachers are trained, having of one kind or another. We have a number of different qualifications, and at the primary level, I would say we have 100% teachers trained. Just about 80% in secondary schools, but as I note there, the others really would have a first degree from a university, but would not have had teaching. So further to that, our teachers are trained in teachers' colleges. Our universities really are more concentrated on postgraduate qualifications for teachers, though they do focus on some specialist areas. And our initial qualifications into teaching used to be a 3-year diploma. But in 2011, the government decided that a bachelor in education should be entry qualification into teaching. So our colleges therefore had to redesign their program into a 4-year bachelor's degree. And the description of our practicum that I will give you is what now resides in our 4-year bachelor's degree. And just as a side note, we have just are about to start rethinking how we train our primary teachers. And normally we would have generalists. They go in and they do all the subjects that they have to teach in this curriculum. But we are now beginning to just starting out to conceptualize and implement a specialist program for our primary teachers in an attempt to address the knowledge deficit which we found that our teachers came out with. We felt that they were not able to, really deliver on that. So we have 8 government-funded teacher education institutions at the college level. 10, sorry, we have 10, but 8 of them don't have degree granting status. So those 8 have formed themselves into a consortium, Teachers Colleges of Jamaica. And under this consortium, they develop common programs and do common examinations. So if we have 5 colleges training teachers for primary, 5 of those 8 colleges training teachers for the primary system. They all do the same program. They all do the same examinations. Because they are not degree granting, and that is a quality control issue that the government has taken. They feel that our colleges are still in an emerging state. So whereas it's in the plan for eventually, they're getting this status at the moment, they don't. So their degrees are granted by the University of the West Indies, which is a regional university across the entire Caribbean. But under that program, therefore, it is managed by the Joint Board of Teacher Education, which is a unit within the School of Education, UWI. And I managed this unit. I retired about just a little over 2 years ago from managing this unit. So therefore, the program that I will describe is that program shared by those 8 colleges. And we look at how evolved. First of all, from a historical perspective, in the previous 3-year program, they simply did an end of program practicum of about 12 weeks in a school. And we found that that was not sufficiently providing the transfer of theory into practice. So we wanted to move away from that. So it's built on the general principle that there needs to be great exposure to authentic classroom experiences from the get-go. So the program, therefore, they start having different types of exposure from the very first year that they enter their 4-year program. And it is a laddered, if you will. Each year different, it broadens, and we focus on a wider and wider area until eventually in their 4th, they actually have responsibility in their practicum for a class on their own, right? And the standards that we are using are those of our teaching council, the Jamaica Teaching Council, which have standards for the new teacher, and those are what guides what happens there. So what does the structure of the practicum look like? It is comprised of a series of field experiences where, under supervision, the teachers carry out activity, whether in the early childhood, primary or secondary schools, depending on their area of specialization. So they are trained either as an early childhood, that is infant through to grade 2, or a primary, which takes them up to grade 6, or they specialize in a particular subject. 2, they may have a major and a minor, or they may do a double major in a particular subject for the secondary schools. So as I said, in each year, they have an exposure in the school. And for the most part, it is formative. But as you will expect, there's some element of evaluation as we go along. And we're expecting, and it culminates in that final practicum where the teachers have to show their readiness, if you will, for taking on a class of their own. And that becomes a major factor in their graduation exercise. So, why am I not moving? Some reason my screen has frozen. Okay, so this is what it looks like. We use our credit for our practicum. 45 hours constitutes 1 credit. So we have, in year 1, they just do 1 credit, and as you see, it goes up until eventually in the final year, what they do constitutes 9 credits of their program. So in essence, 15 credits of their program is dedicated to the practicum that we have there. And I'll just quickly take you through what each of the practicum looks like. The formula is that generally in the first semester of the year, it is the theoretical underpinnings of what they need to do. And the second semester, they are they go out in the field. So year one, it's simply an observation. They go out to observe how the schools operate, and they go out with an observation schedule that they have to look for certain things. They have to actually look at least make comments about at least 2 lessons that they have observed. Then they must do a reflective piece on their exercise. So it's familiarization with the school context, bearing in mind that, as I said, most of our teachers, I would say most of our students in our colleges, perhaps easily 95% of them are coming straight from school. So they have only had an exposure as a student. So now they have to put on the teacher cap and the teacher eye to look at it from the perspective of teaching rather than from the, from the perspective of the student, so to speak. Year two, we start building. So having just observed year two, now we start expecting them to focus a little bit more on the actual act of teaching, but it's team teaching. So again, first semester, they are taken through the rudiments of lesson planning, team, peer observation, critiquing what happens and so. And then they go out in the schools for 3 weeks, actually. The first 2 weeks, they work in teams and guided by their supervisors, they prepare on the conference. And then eventually, by the third week, they are expected now, having planned together, they teach, they get their first taste of actually teaching a lesson on their own, but planned in collaboration with the members of their team, which will be 2 or 3, no more than 3 when they do that, and always under the guidance of their supervisors. Again, reflection is a very important part of the process, so they reflect on each other, right? How they have their, as I looked at what Charisma was doing a while ago with that avatar exercise, it was something that I just said, oh, if we had something like that in Jamaica, it would be such a wonderful experience for them. Then our Practicum 3, again, building up. So now they start planning on their own and doing their own teaching. So it's in essence, it's a 4-week exercise, but all the while when we have these, some of it is identified for preparation and working with their college supervisors, and then they go out from it's a 5-week exercise. So they go out now and they do some teaching. I'm going to show you after this that we build, and at this stage you are not expected to do too much at the time. It's exposure, really. And that brings us to the 4-year practicum, where they spend an entire semester focusing on this exercise. This is what determines how they have been able to carry their observations, their team teaching, their taste of individual teaching into the actual practice. And they prepare, and then they go out and they have responsibility for teaching a classroom there. I'm going to, so then, because this is a final component I just shared with you, even though each of the others have a component of assessment, because the focus is more formative, I didn't dwell too much on that. But even as they're seen consistently throughout the period they're in the school, certain of these experiences are used for their final assessment. So it's a shared input. So the supervisors select 2 of the their own teaching episodes to present as part of their final grade. But there's an external review under the guidance of the Joint Board of Teacher Education, that is the University of the West Indies, and they also have to be cataloging their portfolio, which would have their lesson plans, their reflections, any special experience they've had, and so forth, to help them through that. So I just want to, I hope this will open us as I wanted to do. Let's see, you know, I wanted to this always gives me a little problem, although I've linked it to this. I've linked it to this, but perhaps what I'll do is, okay, what I'm going to do is stop sharing this and share another document, then I'll come back to this in a little while. Okay, so that might be easier than, and I hope I don't have too many things open on, as I always do. Where am I? This should be it. Yes, here we go. Okay, I just wanted to give you a quick view of, of the progression, if you will, over the exercise. So I'm going to, if we can focus it, the columns 2, 3, 4, and 5 are years 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I just want us, so in year 1, as you see, it's simply observation of and reflecting on the school, how the school operates. And they go in and they observe, and they must make a comment on 2 lessons, and they have their overall reflection. In year 2, it is team planning, team teaching, and a little bit of individual teaching. And the focus is on planning and classroom management, and of course, issues of professionalism and so forth. Year 3, the focus is now on individual planning. But if you notice, we also limit what they do. So in year 2, when they go, they just teach 1 subject per day. And for the secondaries, they will do 6 sessions across the week that they are there. So it's just a taste of the timetable. Then when they come to year 3, we start increasing that. So they teach for half day. They decide with the cooperating teacher and their supervisors which areas of the curriculum they will do. And they teach for half day. And with the secondaries, where it's not so easy to say half day, we say they do 10 to 12 sessions. And finally, in year 4, they're expected to be able to display all the competencies that a teacher is. But even at that stage, we do not ask them to take the responsibility of a full timetable, because we recognize that they have to have enough time for preparation. So our early childhood specialists and our primary specialists teach about two-thirds of the program for the day. And the secondaries are expecting to teach 12 to 15 sessions for the day. Right? So as you see, it's a gradated thing, building on the competencies, increasing the expectations of the teachers until we feel that they're ready to more or less take control of a class. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint and just look at the relationship, if you will, between the different. So so it's really a partnership between four entities, really: the Joint Board of Teacher Education, the Teachers Colleges of Jamaica, the institutions, the partnering schools, the cooperating schools, and the students themselves. but I'm going to concentrate very quickly on the first three. So what does the Joint Board of Teacher Education do? It develops the regulations for the exercise. It appoints external assessors and trains those external assessors who will go in at the very end of the process, working with college teams. And also we do, in doing that, we do an exchange with the other parties to go in. So we'll have an external, somebody independent of the colleges, and we'll have a representative from one of the other colleges. That way we also ensure that we share experiences among the 8 colleges. And we supervise how this final process is. And we have to ratify those grades on behalf of the UWI, because essentially the Joint Board of Teacher Education is the body that ensures that the colleges meet the standards set by the University of the West Indies, to ensure that it is satisfied, that it meets, it equates to, because the University of the West Indies also offers a Bachelor of Education. So we have to make sure that it's comparable. So the Joint Board has the primary responsibility for ensuring comparability between what the colleges do and what the university does in its own programs. The teachers' colleges have overall, it's their students, but they have the responsibility to provide the supervisors and train the supervisors, make sure the supervisors are not all lecturers can do the in-field work well, so they have to be careful how they select their college supervisors who work with the students in the field. They liaise with the partnering institutions, do their supervisory visits, dialogue with student teachers, work with the cooperating teacher in the school, and they're also part of, while they are working with them in the formative, at the end, they have to be available and assist the external team as they do their final examination of the students' competence. Schools, now that's where things become a little bit complex, because they are host cooperating schools, and I point out that there are non-financial partnership with colleges. I know some institutions, for example, when we look at, I don't know if that has changed, but for example, in the UK, participating schools get some sort of budgetary allocation, if you will. There is some financial benefit for accommodating these practicing teachers in the system. There's no financial outcomes for the participating schools, only insofar as they need trained teachers. So therefore, we have to work with them, and they have to work with us to ensure that they get the practice that they need in order to get the type of they need, right? But nonetheless, there is some sort of partnership. So you'll find that the participating schools have a relationship where the colleges to which they're attached or which they facilitate will give ongoing professional development programs and training sessions for their teachers. So that's a spin-off, but there's no financial input then. So they have to make the necessary preparations to help the student teachers feel welcome in part of the staff, place student teachers under the guidance of an experienced and successful mentor teacher, and ensure that they are exposed to all the experiences of being a teacher. So they don't just go in and teach. It is expected that they participate in the planning meetings, doing any outside class duties from time to time. And so at the end of the day, they should have had an exposure to the full ambit of what they will have to do when they go out. The host teacher really is the cooperating teacher. That teacher in the school is the person who is going to have to help to all to this about to begin teacher to organize their skills in leadership and so forth. So we ask that they must have themselves been successful teachers in order to be able to give good mentorship. Now, even as I say that that is a preferred thing, we do find that sometimes schools use the advantage of putting a student there in a situation where they have a problem, an effective teacher. So they say, well, at least this the students will give a break, if you will, because they are under supervision, so that for the weeks that they are there, because they are under supervision of the college, they will therefore it will be the benefit of the teachers. So it does not always work out as we would want it, where they necessarily end up with a teacher that should give them the sort of mentorship that we want. But I'd say for the most part, it does happen. So we have a profile of this cooperating host teacher, a commitment to the teaching profession, able to monitor good teaching and capable to undertake the roles and responsibilities of a host teacher. And of course, schools, the colleges do train these teachers, have training sessions for these teachers before they send them to the school once they have decided. They do play some additional roles here. So apart from good modeling of teaching, because that comes in especially because the teachers are not, the student teachers are not expected to take over the entire curriculum as the program for the period. They do 2/3. So while they're preparing, they're also expected to be able to see their host teacher teach. And so the modeling for the student teacher becomes an important part. Generally help them to settling into the school. But importantly, they also need to take an assessment teachers and actually decide, help them decide how much they can take on and how they should, if they feel that they, to what extent they can start taking responsibility for more and more of the classroom activity. So this last bullet really says a decision of how soon and how often student teachers will be in charge of classes is left to the judgment of the college supervisor in collaboration with the host teacher. They have to eventually take up the full load, but in some instances it may be a little bit more a gradual process based on how quickly they are settling in. So in a nutshell, really, that is how we run our operation in Jamaica. We have we don't have an induction program. You know, in some countries you go in, and Belize, for example, in the Caribbean, they have after they have graduated, they have an induction program for a year. Jamaica does not have that induction program, and that is why it is so critical that they work with them closely across the 4 years in order to help them as best as possible be able to take over a class, because the reality is that very often they're thrown in at the deep end. Once they have graduated, they get a job in the system. They are in charge of that class. And with some supervision, yes, but the expectation is usually that they can handle a class, and therefore they are given a class to handle. We don't have a strong mentorship program for the beginning. It's on the books to think about, but at the moment that is, as I said, the teachers are essentially thrown in at the deep end. So I hope that gave you a sense of how we manage our system in Jamaica in the context of limited resources. I must say too that, of course, COVID has done all sorts of things. Our schools have not had face-to-face sessions since the 10th of March, 2020. So everything has been online. So all of this that the teachers would be doing would have to be in an online modality, using primarily the Google Classroom. For that is I would, some schools have other platforms, but for the most part, they use the Google Classroom. And as I said, for a year and a half, more than that really, we closed school the 10th of March 2020, and there has been no face-to-face at that, certainly in the public system. Some of our private schools have opened in or do a rotation thing, but our public schools have essentially been closed. Just some accommodation for the students doing major examinations from time to time. So I think that's where I am, and happy for you to ask any questions that you may wish to ask.